What is going on? Welcome back to part 2 of the Enhancement Talent. I am the Rob from 106.1 KISS FM alongside my broadcast cohorts.
Hey, it's Eric Cordes from WKDQ. Thank you for joining us a couple times a week here on our respective websites. We certainly do appreciate it.
We do.
And your comments and questions and all that we appreciate too. And I think we might get some on this topic here that we've been working on.
I took a kind of different approach. If you watched part 1, you just saw Eric's list of the top 5 underutilized guys who you should build a promotion around. I don't know if I answered your question the same exact way you did, but I do have a list of the 5 guys who I feel like should have been bigger stars.
Okay.
And I'll give them to you, not exactly ranked in order of how good they were or anything, but just like I said, in order of names you'd expect to names that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Like, first of all, like the first name you always hear brought up is Mr. Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Probably should have been at a main event level for longer in WWE. Was worthy of being a champion, I think, in WWE. And was always having consistently good matches.
Yeah, you know what? I think and this might be a future show, if we can do a show to where, you know, let's say Hulk Hogan actually passed the torch to the Ultimate Warrior in 1990 and left the promotion for good, things might have been a lot different in the WWE.
I would say things would be a lot different.
And you'd have a lot more of these guys that we're talking about that should have been champion, that would have been champion. So yeah, maybe that's something we talk about in the future. And I think Mr. Perfect is definitely a great choice.
Well, that segues nicely into this next name of mine, because I remember when I actually got to interview the Warrior in 2004, I asked him who he liked to work with the most. And he told me unequivocally the guy who taught him the most about wrestling was Rick Rude.
There you go.
And he also made a very bizarre comment. This is a true story, and I've seen this on news sites and wrestling like message boards and stuff. He told me, and I swear this is true, he was, quote, glad Rick Rude was dead because he didn't want people who were abusing drugs the way he was on the same planet as his children.
Wow.
That is a true story. From his mouth to my ears and right to yours, he told me that. Wow. And if you Google that, you'll see oftentimes I'm quoted in it, and people are very, very upset about that quote. But Rick was an incredible heel, a good look, a good personality. He had a whole gimmick that was ready for the main event, in my opinion. And he never really got out of like being the best in the mid-card.
Yeah, and once he got to WCW, he did get a little more of that shine, but this was in the depths of WCW right before the boom, so does it really count?
I think that his heyday would not be, even if he was higher in the card in WCW, being the Intercontinental Champion and feuding with Bret Hart in WWF was probably, I think,
bigger for him than being the WCW
exactly.
champion. Yeah, no, I agree.
Than feuding with Master P and the No Limit Soldiers or whatever Rapid Crap. That stuff.
I even mean before that. I mean, he had a great feud with Sting in the early days of WCW. When it was just become WCW, I guess, from the NWA. He held the international title, whatever it was, when they still had 2 world titles. Yeah, what promotion would have 2 world titles? That's silly. Yeah, anyway. Great one. I like both of those choices so far.
I'm going to give you another deceased one here. In fact, most of my list is deceased, but not all of it. My favorite heel of all time, after he died, I realized that he was a very, very big part of why I'm a wrestling fan today. If you watched my story about how I became a fan, there was one particular match that gripped me more than any other. And that was a cage match between Bret Hart and his little brother Owen. Bret Hart did live up to his potential. I don't know that Owen did. Owen was a bit smaller. He was goofier. And I think he was kind of perceived as that runt character of the family. But he was still an amazing heel. I mean, he would have me enraged before I knew how the business worked.
Right.
And to me, it's like my most hated wrestler of all time was him. Because he was mean to his brother Bret, who I loved. And he was so good at it. Whatever kind of things kept him out of the main... I guess he was in the main event picture, but he was never a champion. And he probably should have been.
And I think he might have been, had things, not gone the way that they did. He wasn't a lull in his career, I think, when he did die. But
I don't know that I agree with that. I've heard that before. I feel like Owen wasn't going to be in wrestling much longer. And I feel like his better days are behind him. I think that at least as far as his popularity goes, as a heel, 1994, 1995 was his heyday.
Okay.
All right, here's I'm going to get a bit more surprising for you here.
Okay.
I think that even though they did big things and had a tag team championship run. As singles competitors, the members of Team Angle were underutilized. Shelton Benjamin, Charlie Haas, more so Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah.
What a remarkable athlete. He always gave me memorable performances, whether he was in Team Angle or solo. I don't know what it was about him that his solo career never took off. I'm not even sure Charlie Haas even got the chance.
No, not really. I think Shelton's problem was his promo skills, because I don't think they were up to par.
Well, when you have an athlete like that, there's ways to protect him.
I agree. I totally agree.
And whatever it was, he especially, but also to a lesser extent Charlie Haas, I would have loved to have seen do more. Do you agree with that one?
No, I totally agree with that. I think Shelton, when he got into that level, I mean, I think it'd be safe to say that at one time on the Raw brand, when they had the brand extension, that he might have been the number 2 or 3 babyface on their roster at one time.
And there were maybe times when he was the best worker on the roster
Absolutely.
too. He was having great matches, and I just remember a lot of great memories of him. And I feel like mostly Shelton, but also Charlie should have gotten a bigger shot in WWE.
How about that match, Shelton Benjamin and Shawn Michaels on Raw?
It was the Gold Rush tournament.
What a great
And you're talking
match.
about, and I remember it ended with Charlie Haas springboarding across the ring right into a waiting super kick.
Unbelievable.
And it looked flawless, and I mean, he was just a guy that never screwed that stuff up.
Yeah.
And no matter how many times I'd seen it, watching him jump from the floor to the top rope was always remarkable.
Right. And again, it's something else. We talked about Paul Burchill in part 1, but then you drop Shelton Benjamin down to that ECW brand, and it just erased everything that he had done. It didn't elevate the brand, which I think they had hoped it to do. Mm-hmm. It just made him one of those other guys.
So I'm inducting Team Angle as one there. And
sounds good. I like it.
The one name I'm going to say that may surprise some people, the British Bulldog, I feel like was an incredible singles wrestler. Mm-hmm. He did have, there was times in the In Your House days where he was in the main event with Shawn Michaels. He always did so well. He was a small guy, but his look was Greek goddess-like. And he had, to me, this look. I thought he was ready to be a champion. I don't know how he never was.
I don't either.
I mean, you can watch his tag team stuff, and as a tag team, I don't feel he was underutilized. But as a singles wrestler, the British Bulldog was ready to be a champion, even when he came back.
Yeah.
Even when he came back in 2099 or whenever it was, he was in that six-pack challenge, and he was kind of in the main event picture again. He was, in my opinion, always on the level of a champion.
No, I agree. But he was one of those guys, though. He's kind of like Roddy Piper in my mind, to where he's such a good utility player that he never really needed the title. He could always be in the main event, and he could elevate whoever he was working against. And I do feel like his demons probably hurt him a little bit. If you've heard Brett tell the stories about Wembley Stadium, which, think about that, how great that match was, that main event for the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam 92. And when you look at the fact that at least Brett claims that his brother-in-law was quite drugged up at that time, and Brett carried that match. Can you imagine how awesome the match would have been had he been in his right mind?
Well, I'll tell you something crazy. I don't know if this is an example of that, but I feel they had a better match at In Your House in December of 95.
Yeah.
Do you remember that match?
Yeah, I do.
And that match, in my opinion, is even better than the Wembley match.
Yeah, they always, seem to work well together, and I think Bulldog worked well with a lot of people. I mean, he worked great with Kevin Nash. With Michaels, of course.
He never had bad matches. That's what I loved about Davey Boy, and I think that he should have had a title run.
Yeah, very, very good. Very good. So, hey, we kind of went in different directions, but I do like where you went with that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that we've got a lot of people that want to comment their folks that they like.
And you can pick either way you want to take it. Who would you build a federation around today, or underutilized talents of all time?
Yeah, very good. All right, awesome. Well, if you've got any comments, questions,
send us your lists.
Or any other topics. Yeah, you got
Please.
More topics you want us to cover? There you go. You've got all our information right there at the bottom of the screen, and we will have another Enhancement Talent for you coming up later on this week. For the Rob.
Thank you.
And for me, Eric Hornish, this is Enhancement Talent.